Hey, fourth grade, Mr. Bauer here. I believe if you're seeing this right now, it is Monday, April 27th, and yeehaw! I turned 60 yesterday. Remember, we were going to have a big birthday party in class. Well, I turned 60 yesterday. Man, 6 decades. No more 50s. Now it's 60, 61. Wow. Oh, time flies, right? Okay, so anyway, it's Monday, April 27th, and we are going to continue with Unit 6 by looking at Session 4 and Session 5 of Unit 6, okay? So if you look at the board, Session 4 is talking about, different multiplication strategies, okay? So I know you're groaning right now. You might never use this, but Bridges, they want you to have number sense. They want you to have a sense for numbers. So they have you look at all different kinds of things like this. So in Session 4, they talk about, this was in the Teaching Masters, so you guys don't have a copy of this, but they were talking about cases of water with 26 bottles in each case, okay? And so this is a times 26 ratio table, all right? So what they wanted to show was if we do times 2, times 2, and times 2, and times 2, times 2, times 2, we can go from 1, 2, 4, and 8 by doubling the numbers, okay? So one case 26, 2 is 2 26s or 52. Now we double again up to 4 cases, and now that's 52 times 2 or 104. And then times 2 again gets us to 8 cases of water, 208 bottles. And then they jump to 10, which you guys can do 10 times 26, 260. And then they do 100 cases of water, that's 2,600 water bottles. And then they drop back down to 99 because this is, I think most of the fourth grade teachers, we've touched on this before. It's the over strategy. So instead of doing 99 times 26, you go to 100 times 26, which is 2,600, and then you take one of the 26s back, okay? Because this is 100 groups of 26, and this is only 99 groups of 26. So if you take a group of 26 back from 2,600, you get 2,574, which is this. I know you might not do it that way, but I'm saying that's a possibility, okay? Now, underneath that, we have another over problem. Say you're doing 9 times 17. Well, that's 9 groups of 17. And then you're thinking, well, 10 groups of 17, 10 times 17, all right? So this has one more group of 17 in it than 9 groups of 17. So if 170, which is 10 times 17, is actually 1 times 17, one group of 17 too many to do 9 times 17. So long story short, 170 minus 17 equals 153, and that's what 17 times 9 is, okay, or 9 times 17. So that's an over problem, okay? So now in the middle here we have, Bridges talks about, up till now they're talking about different strategies, and one of them is 5 is half strategy, which just means if you're doing a number, like 5 times 16, if you end up thinking, well, I'll just do 10 times 16 and cut it in half. It does work, see? 10 times 16 is 160. We cut it in half to 5. We cut the product in half, and 5 times 16 is 80, okay? So that's 5 is half strategy. So anything times 10, if you want to know what 5 times that number is, you can do 10 times that number and cut it in half, okay? Easy enough. Then we already talked about the over strategy. And then Bridges talks about, and this is all in the Teaching Masters, which you guys don't have. This is what the fourth grade teachers would have done with you on the camera using the Bridges teaching pages. But anyway, number 3 is using smaller problems to solve larger problems. That's basically like, here's a ratio table, a times 13 ratio table, where if you know 1 times 13 is 13, you know 2 times 13 is 26, then you know that 3 times 13, if you add 1 and 2 together and add their products together, you get what 3 times 13 is. So it's using smaller problems to solve larger problems. Same with the area model, okay? We take 14 times 27 and we put it in the area model, and we're solving easier, smaller problems. We do have to add them together when we're done, but it solves a bigger problem, okay? Session 5, we're going over 4 and 5. All of that was session 4, okay? Session 5 comes from Teaching Master number 13 in the teacher book. And this is basically, and your teachers were supposed to give you 3 word problems from the Bridges Teacher Masters, and we're going to go over them in class. Well, I'm just going to go over the 3 problems. These were story problems. This one just ended up being 15 times 23. So you could use the algorithm, you can use the area model, and you could use the ratio table to solve that. And then the next problem was just 24 times 25. Like I said, you could do that in a number of ways that we just mentioned. Now, number 3, I wanted to stop and look at for a second. The Teaching Master on number 13, number 3 talks about if you had a gym teacher in a school and her whole number of students is 450 students in the whole school. That's how many kids she has in gym class. And each class is 25 students large, okay? So we could do 450 divided by 25, but what if you did, if you thought about hundreds, okay? So here's a class, here's a class, here's a class, here's a class. That's 4 classes, and that's 100, okay? Well, over here in our number, we have 4, besides the 50, forget about the 50 for now, but we have 400 kids in the hundreds column here, 400, okay? And every 4 classes are 25, 25, 20, 25. You get 4 classes in every 100. So 4 times 4 is 16 classes, okay? And then we have 50 extra kids here, which is 2 more classes. So the answer, 18 classes. So I meant to show you that because I know some of you can do 450 divided by 25 like this. Okay, I know some of you can do that, but a lot of us, if you write it out like this, remember Bridges says, you know, if you can figure out a number expression, if you can use a sketch, a picture, sometimes we really, after we draw it up, we really understand what the question is asking us. Yeah, this gives us a quick answer, but maybe sometimes going deeper into a problem, we can understand it that much better. Okay, so sometimes sketches work. I've told my class before, I'm a sight person, so even for myself as a teacher, sometimes when I come across a Bridges problem that I've never done before, like 5th grade, for instance, that I'm just starting to teach, I draw a picture because then I understand what they're asking for and then I can find the equation. But I need the picture first, okay? Now, that's all from the Teaching Master. What I wanted to show you here was part of your homework is home connections, and it's 115 and 116, but 116 has, I think it's a challenge problem towards the bottom of 116, and it talks about Tina, and she's collecting cans, okay? And they are 5 cents a can, so think of another state like Indiana that only when you turn in a can, you only get 5 cents, not 10 cents like in Michigan. So here's her typical pickup for 1 week. So we have Sunday, Monday, all the way through Saturday, and these are the amount of cans. And then she turns them in, okay? Now for me, and talking for you, I think the easiest way to do this is take a look at the total number of cans and multiply by 5 cents, which is just multiply by 5, okay? Now you have to be careful here because the number you're gonna get is gonna be a pretty big number. You have to remember those are all pennies because you're multiplying in cents, okay? Now just remember decimal places. When you have a big number, let's say 4,525, for instance, pennies, that's $45.25, okay? So keep that in mind. And then B, I love this part, she keeps some of the money and then she splits the rest with 3 brothers. So that's a kind of a two-prong problem where you're going to have to subtract first and then divide. But you'll understand it once you read it, okay? Now, coming back here, the last part, we have your homework from Monday to Wednesday is student book 215 to 217, 3 pages, and then 2 pages of home connections. And I just wanted to remind you, on 215, they start out with something like this, and it's basically a vertical ratio table. They do 1 times 17, 2 times 17, 10 times 17. Notice here they drop back to 9 times 17. Well, you see what they're trying to make you do. They're trying to make you do the over strategy, okay? Now, if you want to use the over strategy, that's fine, but that's why they set them up like that. They want you to use some of these strategies that we've talked about. So when you get to 10 times 17, we actually did it over here already. 170, that's 10 groups of 17, but it's a group of 17 too many, so we had to take a 17 back. So this is a 153. So just keep that in mind as you're doing page 215, that it's basically a vertical ratio table, and you can use these to help you find these, okay? So that's the end of Studio B. We are all done for Monday, April 27th. And this 60-year-old body is now out of breath. So I'm going to hit my inhaler, and you have a great week, and I'll see you Wednesday.